Commander Elise Marlowe sat alone on the bridge of the ICS Vanguard, her fingers tracing idle patterns on the hollow controls. All around her, the cavernous void of Sector 9G stretched on, silent and formless, an ocean of starlight flecked with distant suns. For 72 hours, she'd piloted this lone reconnaissance vessel, slicing through the dark in pursuit of unmapped anomalies. Now she prepared for her first true survey. Athena, the Vanguard's shipboard AI, broke the silence. "Commander, probe deployment systems are green. You have 4 hours until you reach the nebula boundary," Elise exhaled, straightening in her command chair. She keyed a command that split the main viewport, superimposing navigation charts over the living tapestry of gas and dust outside. The nebula's core lay ahead, a swirl of violet and green tendrils, backlit by the ghostly glow of a pulsar cluster. It was a maiden frontier, a place no Federation ship had penetrated, and today the Vanguard would be the first. Her mind drifted to why she'd been chosen. Official records cited her unflappable temperament and proven tactical acumen. Unofficially, some whispered she'd volunteered after her last mission's disaster when an entire survey team vanished in the so-called Wraith Rift. No debris, no readings, just an empty jump gate. Elise had emerged from the inquiry unscathed, but defined by that loss. She tapped her comm panel. "Athena, run a full masthead diagnostic. I want every sensor online and calibrated." "Understood." "Commander." In milliseconds, data streams charted across the bridge's arrays. Thermal scans, gravimetric readings, subspace signatures, a cascade of numbers and graphs that only Athena's neural nets could parse in real time. Elise leaned forward. She expanded the magnetic resonance field scanner and fed it through manual. Override. The bridge lights dimmed slightly as power rerouted to the sensor banks. She watched the raw feeds, pockets of turbulence, swirling eddies of ionized plasma, and there at the nebula's rim, a faint flicker of movement. Her pulse quickened. "Athena, zoom in on that flicker. Analyze trajectory and velocity." The AI complied. The flicker resolved into multiple craft, each sleek and dark, glinting intermittently as they cut through the nebula's edge. Elise's stomach tightened. "Unidentified vessels," Athena announced. 6 signatures, speed, 42,000 kilometers per hour. Bearing, consistent with our current heading. Elise's heart hammered in her chest. No friendly registry. Match those profiles. She punched her thumb on the emergency comm channel. "All stations, prepare for unidentified contact." She toggled external camera views. Through the reinforced viewports, she saw the ships emerge from the nebula mist, slim, elongated hulls that bore no Federation or Coalition markings. Their surfaces were obsidian black, segmented by rib-like plating. At their prow, twin spires pulsed with cobalt light. A new data overlay materialized. Athena's voice, steely and calm, cut through Elise's rising tension. "Scans indicate energy weapon emplacements along each flank. Shield signature strength. Class 7. Elise swallowed. Class 7 shields were military grade, far beyond the Vanguard's civilian origins. She activated the tactical console. "Athena, run threat assessment, project engagement probability. Calculating." "Hi. Recommendation, open diplomatic channel." Elise exhaled and keyed the comm. "Unidentified vessels. This is Commander Elise Marlowe of the ICS Vanguard on a peaceful scientific mission. You are approaching restricted territory. Identify yourselves and state your intentions." Silence stretched. Then a voice crackled through in a low, reverberating tone that seemed to distort slightly as Athena translated, "Human vessel, you trespass in the Dominion's domain. You will halt your progress and submit to inspection, or be annihilated." Elise's fingers hovered above the console. The Dominion, a name from ancient conflict, spoken in hushed tones across Federation. Academies. Legends said they'd retreated to their own space, keeping to their core worlds. To encounter them here, at the galaxy's fringe, was unimaginable. Submit to inspection, Elise repeated softly, buying time. She needed options. If she complied, the Vanguard risked boarding or capture. If she refused, she faced utter destruction. Her mind raced through scenarios. She calibrated the thruster's output, prepared evasive trajectories, and opened the weapons bay, revealing the ship's sole defensive turret, a relic modified to fire electromagnetic pulse bursts. Not enough to cripple a war cruiser, but perhaps enough to stagger them. Her eyes darted to the Aegis resonator control. The prototype device, still in testing, could refract energy beams if properly tuned. In theory, it might deflect a plasma bolt, but activating it risked overloading the power matrix and blowing out the Vanguard's core. Elise closed her eyes, centering herself. She drew on the discipline that had carried her through past missions. Focus on data, not fear. The sensors showed 6 ship-to-ship distances, 300 kilometers and closing. Impact probability in under 15 minutes. She reopened her eyes. Athena, beam this message to the Dominion fleet. I intend no aggression, but I will defend this ship if provoked. Stand down or I will be forced to take protective action. Silence. Then the crackling voice again. Time expires. You have 2 minutes. Elise's breath hitched. 2 minutes to decide humanity's first contact with a forgotten empire. She glanced at the nebula, its swirling gases oblivious to her peril. Athena, she said, voice steady, prepare the Aegis resonator. Divert 50% of power to the deflector grid, and ready the EMP turret at maximum charge. Acknowledged. Core power at 50%. Resonator primed. EMP turret charging 95%. She tapped her comm one last time. This is your final warning. Cease weapons lock or I will fire. A single bar of static, and then, astonishingly, a voice brimming with rough awe. Human commander, you possess resolve. We stand down. Elise's mind whirled. They'd backed off. But why? Pride, caution, an unseen factor. The Dominion ships eased their grips, dropping formation knots as they drifted at a cautious distance. Relief and suspicion warred within her. She keyed her console. Athena maintained defensive posture, plot an exit vector skirting the nebula's outer edge. Prepare to engage thrusters on my mark. Acknowledged. Elise rose from her chair, moving to the viewport to watch the Dominion vessels. 6 obsidian shapes drifting among violet gases, silent specters in the cosmic sea. She felt both exhilaration and dread. The frontier was no longer empty. Out here, a single ship could alter history, or become the spark that ignites war. And far from Federation star charts, in the swirling heart of Sector 9G, the Vanguard continued its drift, caught between exploration and survival, a tiny beacon of humanity's curiosity and courage. Her pulse slowed. She whispered more to herself than to the AI. Let's see what secrets this nebula holds. Outside, the violet tendrils beckoned, and the Dominion's fleet watched with silent, inscrutable interest. The Dominion fleet gleamed like a constellation of black stars as it closed in on the ICS Vanguard. Through the reinforced viewports on the bridge, Commander Elise Marlowe watched the 6 sleek war cruisers form a perfect semicircle around her. Solitary ship, each vessel boasted forward-mounted plasma cannons and branching energy arrays that hummed with lethal potential. Range to lead ship, 90 kilometers and dropping, Athena reported, her voice unflappable despite the imminent threat. Elise's fingers hovered over the tactical console. Across 3 decks below, the crew of 10, including engineers, scientists, and a handful of security officers, moved into their battle stations. Though the Vanguard had never been designed for war, Elise had retrofitted her crew with emergency in protocols. Still, facing 6 Dominion war cruisers felt like bringing a knife to a cannon duel. She activated the external sensor grid. A cascade of readings flooded the displays: hull thickness, shield capacitance, reactor output, and plasma bank charge levels. Each Dominion cruiser matched the others in hardware and configuration, mass-produced instruments of devastation. Weapon. Lock confirmed on 5 points per ship, Athena continued. Time to impact, 14 minutes. Elise drew a measured breath. She could comply with the Dominion's demands, diverting power to docking clamps and risking capture. Or she could fight and almost certainly perish. But discretion was not always the better part of valor. The human spirit thrived on resistance, even against impossible odds. Athena, begin charging the photon displacer cannon, Elise ordered. The photon displacer was a jury-rigged weapon, a forward-mounted accelerator that could deliver a concussive burst strong enough to shatter a light freighter's hull. Against a war cruiser, it would be a Hail Mary, but any edge mattered. Acknowledged. Cannon charging. Estimated time to full power, 3 minutes. Elise let her gaze drift to the Aegis resonator control panel. The prototype device lay at the heart of her gamble. By redirecting incoming plasma frequencies through an oscillating electromagnetic field, it could theoretically deflect or even reflect the Dominion's bolts. All she needed was a fraction of a second of successful calibration. Officers at their stations exchanged tense glances. In the silence, even heartbeats seemed amplified. Then, without warning, the lead cruiser, the Dishar Empress, spooled its primary plasma banks. Twin beams of glowing blue energy lanced forward. Alarm klaxons wailed. "Elise, they're firing!" Ensign Torres shouted, almost shouting past the shifting hull vibrations. "Divert all available power to forward shields," Elise commanded, voice steely. "Athena, activate Aegis resonator on my mark." Aegis resonator charging 80%. Elise watched the targeting reticle advance. The plasma bolts arced toward the Vanguard like twin comets, searing trails of light against the star-speckled backdrop. "Now!" she hissed. The resonator flared to life, rippling across the forward shield grid in concentric waves. The first plasma bolt struck with an explosive crack, then ricocheted outward in a scintillating arc. The second bolt followed, but it too faltered, siphoned off by the resonator's field, and swept harmlessly into space. A collective gasp rippled through the bridge. For a moment, defiance tasted sweet. "Open fire!" Elise barked. The photon displacer cannon erupted, sending a shudder through the Vanguard's frame. A searing beam of charged photonic particles punched through the Dishar Empress's forward shield, gouging a bloody scar across the black hull. Energy flares blossomed as structural integrity collapsed in a cascading chain reaction. On the Dominion flagship, alarms blared and lives flickered out. The vessel's prow twisted, its orientation disrupted by the sudden loss of power. In less than 10 seconds, the Dishar Empress disintegrated in a silent explosion, fragments scattering like meteors into the void. Elise pressed her lips together as she stared at the smoldering debris. "Status?" she asked quietly. "Shields at 92%, Athena replied. "Photon displacer cannon at 80% recharging. Aegis resonator integrity at 75%. Behind her, the Dominion cruisers wavered in formation. Their targeting arrays blinked uncertainly, no longer pointing assuredly at the Vanguard. In their scanner feeds, the remaining 5 ships bore fresh scars, plasma gouges and small breaches where countercharges had struck home. "Dominion Commander." Sakar's voice crackled through the comms. It sounded strained, breathless. "Human, you have weapons beyond our projections. We withdraw." Elise hesitated only a moment before responding. "Hold position," she ordered. "If you genuinely seek parley, lower your shields and open." Communications channel. Lowering shields, channel open, Sakaar replied. I am Commander Elise Marlowe of the ICS Vanguard. You've attacked me without provocation. Explain yourself. Silence fell. Then Sakaar's voice returned, tinged with something close to regret. Your kind, we considered fledgling, harmless. The Dominion's pride demanded swift justice. We judged poorly. Elise's pulse slowed. Judgment can be refined. Offer me 1 hour for diplomatic exchange. Fail, and I will consider your remaining fleet hostile. Another pause. Then Sakaar agreed, his tone subdued. 1 hour. No tricks, human. Agreed. Elise cut the channel. She turned to her. Crew. Damage report? The chief engineer, Lieutenant Ree, shook her head with relief. Minor hull breaches on Deck 4, 2 broken service lines. Shields held, no casualties. The Vanguard is flight ready. A triumphant murmur rose around her. Elise allowed herself a brief smile. Against all odds, she had not only survived, but struck a brutal blow. The Dominion Armada had come to crush a lone scout, and learned the hard way that a single human can still tip the balance in their favor. Outside, the void was silent once more. Ashen fragments of the Dishar Empress drifted toward the nebula's edge, where violet tendrils beckoned like silent sentinels. Elise gazed at them, knowing that this skirmish was only the beginning. The Dominion would reconsider its doctrine, and the Federation would hear of her defiance. But for now, in the cold quiet of deep space, the Vanguard sailed on, its commander more resolute than ever to uncover the nebula's secrets and to prove that humanity's courage could shine brighter than any star. The crackling burst of the photon displacer's impact still hung in Elise Marlowe's ears when the Dominion formation began to shudder and back away. 5 war cruisers, once poised to obliterate the lone Vanguard, sputtered and veered off course, their once implacable advance reduced to a ragged retreat. Commander Sakaar's voice trembled over the comm channel. Human, this is Commander Sakaar of the Dominion Armada. We request ceasefire. Elise held her breath. For a heartbeat, the vast nothingness between the ships felt impossibly heavy, pregnant with the possibility of either mercy or renewed violence. Stand down, Elise replied, her voice firm. Lower your shields and maintain your current headings. No sudden maneuvers. Outside the viewport, the 5 cruisers powered down their energy arrays in unison, their plating dimming from threatening cobalt to dull grey. Under Elise's orders, the Vanguard drifted forward, closing the distance to escort the crippled fleet. Beneath her, the drone bay opened, releasing 2 spherical repair units that glowed with soft amber light. Repair drones deploying, Athena announced. Autonomous, hull patch and reactor stabilization protocols engaged. The amber spheres darted toward the nearest cruiser's gash-marked flank, extending telescoping arms to weld steel plate over ruptures and rethread compromised coolant lines. Elise watched the microscopic sparks dance against the dead vessel's black hull and felt a curious mix of triumph and unease. She had saved her adversary from destruction, but what would they do with their lives now? Moments later, the first cruiser's command pod flared open, and a slender boarding tube latched onto the Vanguard's exterior hull. Elise activated the external comm panel. Commander Marlowe, Sakaar's voice crackled, tinged with what sounded like genuine relief. We thank you for preserving our fleet. Elise nodded to her security officer. Prepare an observation airlock. We'll receive your delegation. Inside the docking chamber, the hatch cycled open to reveal a delegation of Dominion officers, their glossy exoskeletons catching the ambient light, their large, opal-like eyes flicking with curiosity and subdued respect. Leading them was Commander Sakaar himself, his regal bearing unbowed despite the smudges of soot on his armor. Elise stepped forward and offered her hand, an ancient gesture that nevertheless felt fitting. "Welcome aboard the ICS Vanguard," she said. "You are our guests." Saka paused, then inclined his head and extended a finely segmented forelimb. Their fingertips met, and Elise felt the strange warmth of an alliance being forged. In the temporary conference room, assembled from repurposed lab benches, human and Dominion officers sat around a hollow table. Projected mid-air were three-dimensional. Star maps showing the nebula's swirling eddies and the human settlement charts of the nearby Epsilon Quadrant. The mood, once crackling with hostility, now throbbed with tentative cooperation. "Why attack at all?" Elise asked quietly. "There must be a reason you guard this sector so fiercely." Sakar's exoskeleton rippled as he leaned forward. "The nebula conceals a phenomenon our scouts discovered generations ago, the abyssal rift. It emits fluctuations in subspace that erode our shields and warp our drives. We believed no ship, human or otherwise, should penetrate its heart." Elise exchanged a glance with Athena and the engineering officers. "We detected anomalous energy signatures consistent with your reports. But the rift's core also generates rare isotopes, possible power sources for fusion drives. That's why we came." A murmur ran through the Dominion delegation. Sakar nodded. "Our doctrine was simple: destroy all vessels, deny knowledge to others. But your resolute defense demonstrated a level of ingenuity we underestimated." "Perhaps," Elise said, "we might collaborate. Share your data on the rift's field fluctuations, and we'll help you harvest the isotopes safely." Silence fell. Then, one by one, the Dominion officers inclined their heads in assent. In that moment, the gulf between two civilizations, from mortal enemies to scientific partners, collapsed. As the repair drones finished sealing the last fissures, the Dominion vessels powered up their engines under the Vanguard's protective escort. The once proud armada now trailed in a procession of gratitude rather than conquest. Standing beside her crew, Elise allowed herself a rare moment of satisfaction. The turning tide had come not just through superior firepower, but through the willingness to extend mercy and cooperation. And in the nebulous frontier of Sector 9G, a new alliance was born, one that would reshape both Dominion doctrine and humanity's place among the stars. 2 days later, the repaired Dominion war cruisers glided alongside the ICS Vanguard in formation, not as conquerors, but as reluctant allies. Beneath the violet haze of the nebula, Elise Marlowe stood on the Vanguard's upper observation deck, watching the Dominion vessels burnish their hulls in the faint light of distant stars. Beside her, Athena's soft tones provided the only other company. "Commander," the AI reported, "all diplomatic envoys have convened in the primary conference chamber. Ambassador Virith of the Dominion and Federated Councillor Diaz are en route." Elise inhaled slowly. "Thank you, Athena. I'll join the talk shortly." She allowed herself a moment's reverie, recalling the crackle of plasma bolts, the hum of the photon displacer cannon, the thrill of victory tempered by the weight of responsibility. In less than a rotation, she had turned a deadly engagement into the first step toward peace. The conference chamber thrummed with cautious energy. Hollow projections of the nebula core rotated above the table, luminous tendrils of charged gas interwoven with fractal currents of subspace distortion, the abyssal rift in all its perilous beauty. "Commander Marlowe," Ambassador Vireth began, her carapace plates shifting iridescently, "the Dominion acknowledges your mercy and your brilliance. We propose a joint research initiative, Dominion shield engineers and Federation physicists working in tandem to stabilize rift fluctuations." Federated Councillor Diaz, tall, austere, draped in cerulean robes, nodded gravely. "Such collaboration could yield breakthroughs for both our peoples. The Federation's Project Helios has long sought safe warp corridors through unstable regions. Your data on the rift's harmonics is invaluable. Elise leaned forward, her fingers brushing the calm edge of the table. Agreed, but protocols must ensure transparency, no hidden agendas. Full exchange of rift scan logs, combined command over research vessels, and shared patents on any resulting technologies. Vireth's mandibles clicked, a Dominion gesture of earnestness. Your terms are acceptable. The Dominion High Council will sanction this accord. Diaz smiled, a rare flicker of warmth. Then let us sign the Treaty of Aegis Calix. At the stroke of a hollow pen, their signatures glowed upon the virtual parchment. The rift, once a symbol of fear and division, would now unite two civilizations in scientific pursuit and mutual respect. Hours later, in the Vanguard's quiet briefing room, Elise convened her small command staff. Lieutenant Rhee tapped data into the console. The Dominion's primary shield modulation frequency aligns at 37.2 kHz. Our resonator can adapt within 12 hours. Drone swarms will begin joint calibration tests at 0600 tomorrow. Security Chief Harris cleared his throat. Federation Council has requested a full report. They've dispatched the inspectorate to review combat logs and recommend commendations. Elise allowed herself a half smile. Let them come. I'll answer every question. The truth is, we faced extinction and chose cooperation. That's worth commending. The crew exchanged proud glances. In the cold expanse of space, they had stood together, human and Dominion, against the abyss, and emerged stronger. Later, in the solitude of her quarters, Elise reflected upon her journey. She turned to her journal, a battered holoslate, where she recorded every mission's trials. With a steady hand, she composed her final entry, Entry 47, ICS Vanguard date, 21/25/06/15, location, edge of Sector 9G Nebula. Today, we forged an alliance born from the crucible of conflict. The Dominion and Federation will share knowledge, bound, and by a treaty written in plasma fire and tempered by mercy. I think of the lessons learned. Pride can blind even the mightiest, while a single ship, armed with resolve and ingenuity, can change the course of empires. Tomorrow we begin our joint research. I will stand on the rift's rim once more, not as a lone scout, but as the vanguard of a new era. She sealed the journal and gazed out the viewport. The nebula's colors pulsed, a living kaleidoscope whose beauty belied its danger, yet beneath those cosmic storms, ships now sailed side by side in peace. A soft ding announced an incoming message. Elise tapped the console, incoming from Federation Command. Congratulations, Commander Marlowe. You will receive the Starwood Medal for valor and diplomacy. Fleet wishes you safe passage home. Elise allowed herself a real smile. Her orders were clear. Escort the Dominion Research Flotilla to rendezvous with the Federation Task Force, then return home for well-earned respite. She tapped a quick reply. Acknowledged and grateful. We sail at first light. With that, Commander Marlowe turned from the viewports, ready to steer history's tide once more. In the aftermath of battle, she found not an ending, but the dawning of possibility. A reminder that even in the darkest reaches of space, understanding can outshine any weapon, and unity can conquer the deepest divides.